Hey, welcome. This is Zack Childress, and we are going to be covering how to make big fat checks with flipping houses. And this is probably one of my favorite things of all times, only because of the size of the checks that come off of flipping houses. And so I'm excited to be walking you through this. This is something that if you're not going into, you should absolutely be going into, because I want you to understand that, flipping houses isn't always about, tearing walls down and ripping roofs off. Ultimately what you're looking for is cosmetic repair, and we're going to talk about that. So this training is really designed to help you understand, that you can do this without having any understanding of construction. You may even have to, or you won't even have to pick up an actual hammer, a screw gun, paintbrush, broom, or any kind of physical labor whatsoever. And so that is the best part about flipping houses, is when you remove yourself from the equation, where you're the type that says, oh, well, I need to go out here and I need to learn how to paint and, fix walls and hang sheetrock. That's not what this is about. This is about adding another income stream into your business on deals that, instead of wholesaling them off and making, 5 or 10,000, why not buy them, fix them up, and make 20, 30, 40, even 50,000 in some cases. So, this is something that you can do with the right training, with the right education. And so I want to help guide you down that process today. So let's dig in. So what are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to cover the 9 steps to flipping houses. And these 9 steps are part of you having a clear understanding of what the process looks like. There's finding the deal, there's evaluating the deal, there's funding the deal, there's the inspection process, there's the demo process. And demo doesn't mean tear down the house, okay? Demo means, maybe pulling old carpet out, maybe taking countertops out, old doors, hardware, things like that. Then there's the rehabbing part. This is where we take it and we make it new again. Then there's always the final walkthrough, and that's important. And then staging the house, and then selling the house. So who you need on your team. Let's talk about this. So there are certain people that we need when it comes to flipping houses. And one is a contractor, and these are really for the big jobs. They need to be licensed and insured. If you find a house that just needs carpet and paint, you probably don't need a contractor. You can hire a carpet company to come in and do that, and you can hire a painter to come in and paint. So you will need some subcontractors. These are for the small jobs like we just talked about, the painters, the carpet people, maybe a landscaper, and you definitely want licensed and insured people here as well. And we always need a handyman, someone that can do all things, from, going in and tearing up floors, maybe laying down some new, hardwood floors, or some tile work that's a small job, or maybe just going around and changing the hardware on the doors, putting up lights, ceiling fans, things like that. And we definitely need an agent. It helps with finding the seller, because when we're done with it, we want to hand it off to the agent and we want to move on to the next deal. And an agent can absolutely give you, they can give you great ideas when it comes to, what color schemes or what's going on in the area and so forth. Who you need on your team also is inspectors. We absolutely have to have an inspector. Always inspect the property. I encourage you, and we're going to talk about this, really to have 2 inspections. An inspection when you buy it and an inspection when you're finished, so that you can make sure all the work was completed correctly. Now, one that's not on here is an appraiser. You need an appraiser on your team. I'm a big fan of always appraising the property when you're done with it, so you know where it stands. We need an insurance agent on our team, someone that can work with investors, funders, traditional and non-traditional. If you're seeking more funding information, you should check out, we have a training on how to find the money and all the 9 different types of funds that are available to us and where it's located at. And we need a closing attorney, one that's investor friendly, because that's going to help us, when it comes time to closing transactions. So what are the best areas? So this is something we want to dig into. So we know the team, we know who we need on our team, but what are the best areas to rehab in? You want to find out what the average sales price is in your area, and because the average sales price in your market is really the targeted price point you want to be at. So for an example, my area is like 150, 160,000. So I want to make sure that I'm buying properties that I can fix up and resell right around that price range or a little bit less, because that's where the majority of the buyers are. But you can use Zillow under the sell tab to identify, what is the average sales price in your area, so you know what that is going to look like for you. You can also use a website called neighborhoodscout.com. It's got a lot of great information on there about demographics and schools and real estate. It's a good resource tool. Now, one of the big things I want you to do is find neighborhoods that are in this price range. Whatever that price range is in your market, that is the price range you want to stay in. One of the biggest mistakes that I see investors make is their market could be $150,000 resale price, but they'll go out and find houses that sell for $250,000, $275,000 and wonder why it stays on the market so long and why it's not selling quickly. You see, the goal with flipping is to identify the right area, get in that area, fix them, get them on the market, and sell them quickly. And the way you do that is this right here. Stay in that price range. Look for how many houses have sold in that zip code too. You don't want to be moving into an area and buying a property where you don't have any activity going on. You don't have any movement in the market. Let's say the other markets are selling, 600, 700, 800 houses a year, and you're looking at a market that's selling 100, or you're looking at an area of your market that's selling 100 over a year. Well, that's going to be tough unless that area, is a really small area and it's a highly desirable area. I want you to look for low DOM. DOM is days on market. If you're looking at an area that has 180 days on market on average, well, then that area is just going to tie up your money. So find older neighborhoods next to new neighborhoods. This is a strategy I've used for years, and it works extremely well because, one, the new neighborhoods are bringing in all the traffic, and so they get to see your for sale house too, but also it means it's a desirable area, and there's just not enough houses, so they're going to start building new ones. If you are in a tier 1 market and it's highly competitive, you have to move out to tier 2 and tier 3s, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. But always stay within a 1 hour driving time of where you live when it comes to rehabbing, just so that you can make sure that you're able to get to that property, at least once, twice a week. So let's talk about finding price. So we can go to Zillow. We can go under the sell tab. We can look up Mobile, Alabama in this example, and it'll bring up the clustering of sales and rents and make me move. But over on the right-hand side, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see what's called Why Use Zillow. And there's a little link in there called Zillow Home Value Price Index for Mobile. And so when you click on that, it'll bring up the price and value. And you can see that in this area, it's about $111,000. And it'll give you a little bit of an example, well, not an example, but it'll break it down for you here in the bottom where it says the median home value in Mobile is $111,000, but Mobile home values have gone up 5% over the last year. That's pretty good, actually. Down at the bottom, you'll see the median price of homes currently listed in Mobile is $159,000. So that's even better. What it tells us is that if the average list price is $159,000, but the average home value is $111,000, it just means that there's a lot of lower end homes being sold here. So it tells me A, it's got probably a strong rental market. But B, it also tells me there's probably a lot of rehabbers in the market that are buying houses cheap and fixing them up and selling them. So here's what I mean by tiered markets, okay? So let's use Dallas as an example. It's a tier 1 market and it's highly competitive. And if you try to do, deals inside the Dallas metro area, you're going to have a hard time finding deals right now. And in most cases, you'll have a hard time finding deals at any market. But you want to be able to understand, to get to better deals, you got to start moving out the belt loop. You got to start going into a tier 2 market, which is going to be outside that realm, and even going out into the tier 3 market. These markets are typically about 30 minutes away from the inner circle. So you just got to make sure that you're getting enough market share, and the further out you go, the less competition you're going to have. So what you are looking for when it comes to the flipping business is you're looking for houses that are 10 to 15 years and older, okay? Look, you're not looking for new houses. They don't need any work. You want to find houses that have some age on them, because most of them haven't been updated, aren't up to standards, and so it gives you the ability to get better deals. You definitely want to stay within that 3 beds, 2 bath house range when you're first starting out. Now, if you got a good grasp of this and you got a good contractor, you could go for 2 1s. And then that's when you can start adding on square footage to add another bed, add another bath. But, I wouldn't encourage you to do that right out the gate. You typically want to be around a 1,400 square foot or larger home, just because it gives you bigger bedrooms, bigger living rooms, the kitchens are bigger, and so it's a good starting point when you're looking to create an avatar for a property type. Now, like I said earlier, 2 1s can work if you are ready to add square foot to the house. If you're not at that level yet, I would not encourage you to go down that path. We're looking for mostly cosmetic fix-up, interior and exterior, like paint, floors, countertops, appliances, lighting, fixtures, etc. Things like that is typically what we're looking for as a new flipper. Even as a seasoned flipper, those are really breadwinners for me, because I can get in and out of them very quickly, and I can make, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 on a really easy cosmetic flip. Always paint and fix before replacing anything, okay? There's no need to go in and rip stuff out. This isn't a TV show. This is real life. And so what that means is that you need to think of it from that point of view. Like, can I fix it and can I paint it? We'll use cabinets as an example. I see it too many times where people want to go in and rip out cabinets, but the cabinets are good. They just need to be painted, maybe have some hardware put to them, new knobs, new pulls, new hinges. And in some cases, maybe just they need new doors, but the boxes are still good. And so you can go buy new doors for the cabinets, and the doors could cost you anywhere from $20 to $40 a door. So you got to think about that. Remember, less time involved always equals higher returns, because you're using the same money over and over. Let's say you have a lender that will fund your purchase, but you've got to fund the remodel, which is $20,000. Well, if you do these light cosmetic fix-up, and let's say you do 4 or 5 of those a year, you're using the same $20,000 on each one of those deals. So if you made $20,000 on each deal, that's $100,000 you made on a $20,000 investment by the end of the year. But when you get into these jobs that are going to take you 3, 4, 5 months to do, well, then you can only do a couple of them a year. So you have to think about it from time involved and returns on the money going in the deal. Okay? And these little light cosmetics are so much easier to manage when you're getting started. So let's talk about the flow process to the rehabbing houses. Okay. Number one, there again, finding your deals. Number two, evaluating your deals. Number three is funding your deals. So finding your deals has everything to do with getting the right market and knowing what type of deal to go after. We're going to dig into evaluating. We're going to touch on funding. We have an entire training on funding, so you might want to look into that. We're going to talk about inspecting your deals. We're going to talk about the demo, the rehabbing. We're going to talk about final walkthrough of your deals, staging the deals, and selling your deals. So let's jump into evaluating your property. I always ask myself 3 questions. Every time I look at a deal and I run the numbers, these are 3 questions. I always know your exit first going in. So meaning, will it retail? So if I buy it and I fix it up, can I sell it retail? You know, that there's a lot to that. And one of that is making sure you're in the right market, making sure that you are in an area that people are buying and it's at the right price point. So it's, can I sell it retail? The second one is can I get it at a price point that if I just wanted to wholesale it off for a quick $10,000, am I getting it at that price point? And the third one is if I buy this and for some reason I can't sell it, can I cash flow the deal? You need 2 of these to do the deal. I would never tell you to move forward if you only had 1. Here's why. We need an exit. We need a risk management backfall. So if let's say it can't sell retail, can I turn around and drop the price and sell it wholesale real quick and get out of it, right? Is there enough in there to do that? Number 2 is let's say I fix it up and I can't sell it retail because of the market or something that's shifted. Can I put a renter in it and will it cash flow until the market turns around again for me to sell it? 3 questions. Always ask them. And remember what buyers are looking for. That's going to help you when you're positioning yourself in this type of transaction. All right, continuing with evaluating your property. We need to have the list price. We want to know what it's listed for. That's important. We need to know the ARV, after repaired value. Even though what they want for it has nothing to do with what I'll pay for it, it helps me understand, you know, if they're selling it for 120, but the ARV in the area is 160, well, then I know that they have a clear understanding their property is not up to speed. We need to have a repair cost, and we're going to talk about this more in this training. We need to know what the days on market is in that area, and that's going to come from a CMA report, from an agent, and we'll talk about that. And also how much profit we want out of the deal. You know, a lot of people will say, well, how much do you want? How much do you want? Well, I can tell you this. I typically want at least $20,000 out of every deal I do. Will I take 15? Yes. If it's an easy in and out, but I won't go less than 15. If it's like a $10,000 profit, no way, I won't do it. I'll wholesale the deal and move on. But if it's a larger remodel and it takes more time and more money, then obviously I'm going to want more profits out of that deal. How much profit will our end buyer want? That's always important, you know, when we're looking at it. What's our purchase cost? What will it be? You know, and we're going to run the numbers in a minute with you, so you'll see that. What our resale cost will be. So purchase cost is what it's going to require for us to get a loan to buy the property. The resale cost is what it's going to cost us when we go to sell it using an agent. And what our holding costs will be. What's the day-to-day cost to holding that property? All right, so when we go in and we start evaluating the property, we start with the ARV. So what is the ARV, right? Well, to get real accurate without using an appraisal, we need 3 sold comps in the area. And these need to be like in beds, like in baths, and about a 10% square foot variance. They need to be, you know, the same exterior structure. They can't be one a single story and one a 2-story. I always start with a 1/5 of a mile radius, and then I'll work my way out if I can't find comps. Also, I'm looking for properties that were sold to a homeowner, not bank takebacks or foreclosures, and not to a cash buyer. Those aren't relevant to my after repaired resale price. The other thing is important is 3 active listings. And the reason 3 active listings are important is because I want to see what our competition is doing. I want to see what's on the market. I want to go look at these houses. They're going to be on the MLS. I can do drive-bys of them. I can see pictures of them. I can kind of get an idea what's going on in that area and what's going on with properties that are on the market. And can I produce a better product at a lower price? And I know mine will sell fast. What will the fix-up cost be? You need to get bids on properties, especially for contractor work. And we're going to talk about picking contractors and so forth in a minute. But you got to get bids. I mean, especially when you're first starting out. This is why I say you don't need to know how to use a hammer or a screwdriver. You just need to know how to find contractors and subcontractors to help you get the pricing that you need on the property. You want to review your property inspection report. This is your evaluation of the property, and you will live by this sheet. So there's 2 types of inspections, right? There's the inspection that your inspector will do, and there's the inspection that you will do when you walk through the house, and you'll say to yourself, well, it needs painting, it needs floors, it needs new countertops, it needs an appliances, it needs, the cabinets need to be painted. You're going to have your own property inspection report too. The inspector, the home inspection, it's going to give you stuff that you would have never even thought about because they're going to look at everything. And that home inspection is why I say it's a must, because it's going to lay out what your contractor needs to go in and fix when it comes to the structural or the safety issues of the property. The cosmetic stuff is just you having the vision to kind of see where you want it to be or what colors you want to use or what type of flooring and carpet. Review your material cost sheet. What's it going to cost? What's materials going to cost? You'll want to start putting pricing in this sheet. You'll want to have a sheet. It's in the resource section. And you'll want to start putting your cost in there. What's it going to cost you to, buy a sink or buy a toilet? Or what's a door going to cost or a window going to cost? And you're going to price quote off of it. So when you're looking at this house and you're wanting to get an idea, now obviously the easiest way is just to hire a contractor and have them come in and give you a price. But let's just say it's a little house. It's a little job. And you're going to do it with a handyman. Well, you're going to walk through and you're going to say, look, I need to replace 6 doors. 6 doors are going to cost me $175. I need to replace the flooring. What's the square footage? Length times width. And then whatever that is, I'm going to go look and see what flooring is going to cost. Say flooring is going to cost me $250 plus the pad plus the install, right? So you start to work your own numbers as you build your cost sheet. And general labor is something that you've got to watch out for. This one will get you every time if you're not careful. And you've got a guy on the job that's just there every day, all week, and it'll eat you up if you're not careful. So what is my days on market? That's an important one. So you got to pull the average. So we're looking for sold properties in the last 3 months. I want to watch for neighborhood border lines so that I'm not crossing over into different neighborhoods. I want the same school district that's in that area. No cash closes. Remember, they are always sold sooner. Looking for conventional financing or other types of buyer financing. Then I'm going to look for a CMA report from my agent so that I can start to figure out how long those properties were on the market before they sold. Another very important fact you might want to write down is I also want to look at what it was listed for and what it sold for, and to see if there's a variance there in those comps, comparable sold properties. And that means, for example, if I'm noticing all these houses are listing, but they're selling for 5 or 10% less than the listed price, then I got a pretty good understanding like what the market will bear versus what someone wants. This will be added to the fix-up timeline. So this is important. We're going to talk about this later. But the fix-up timeline, let's say it's going to take you, I don't know, 30 days, 4 weeks to fix the property up. But the days on market are 60 days. Well, you got to add the two together so that you know your total hold time is going to be about 3 months, so that you can factor that into your evaluation sheet. Let's talk about timeline management. This is an important factor because I always say it, time and money, right? How much time are you putting in and how much money are you making? What is my timeline for fix-up? Well, as an example, this is kind of the threshold that we work off of. A small rehab, $10,000 to $20,000 in work, we should be in and out within 3 to 5 weeks. The 5 weeks is on the longer end, and that could only be because something held us up, or we had some issues that we had to overcome, or we tried to order a material and it was on back order, things like that. A medium rehab, $20,000 to $40,000 in work, is typically going to be around 5 to 8 weeks. Now, a larger rehab, $40,000 to $100,000, you're looking a good 8 to 16 weeks inside that project. So, I mean, it could go as far as 4 months in some cases. So, but you want to see your project timeline sheet. It'll be in the resource section as well. Now, it will give you your hold time for repairs. But remember, add this with the days on market so you know your total time of hold. And you'll have your sell date when you add those together. So now you'll know, okay, this project should take me about 8 weeks to do, and there's about 60 days on the market. So I really have a total of 4 months that by the time I buy it, close it, fix it, and it actually gets sold, I'll be 4 months into this project. So let's dig into running your numbers. So when we have now understood the types of properties we're going after, what's the price point we want to target, what are the things that we're evaluating, when we start going down that route and identifying ARV, we can now start to figure out what we need to offer so that we're in a good point when we buy this property. And so that always starts off with list price or value price, but there again, list price could be used, but in most cases it's the value price, which is also the ARV, after repaired value, okay? You take that ARV minus your purchase cost, okay? This is your points plus your title fees that are going to be involved in purchasing the property and the money that's needed. You're then going to have carrying costs. This is your payments per month if you're making payments. If your payments are rolled into the loan, then you wouldn't have this. But whatever your payment is times the month holding, which is the days on market plus the fix-up timeline, then you'll know, get an idea of carrying costs. Also, you want to add in here any utilities that you're going to be paying. The rehab cost. Use the contractor bid in the beginning, or if it's a small job and you've come up with the cost, and use that. Inspection fees and appraisal fees. Remember, I think you have to have 2 inspections and 1 appraisal when you're done. An inspection when you buy it, an inspection when you're done, and an appraisal when you're done. So if you add all that together, you're probably talking somewhere around you're talking around $1,000, $1,000 to $1,100, maybe $1,200 just in that alone. So $1,000 to $1,200 just in that alone, but you need to add it in there. And then you need to minus your profit. What do you want to make after you sell it? Like, what's it worth to you to put that time and energy in? And resale cost. What's the resale cost? This is commissions to a realtor, 6%, or some in cases I'm going to share with you where you can hire a flat fee broker for $500-$600, plus any title fees in that area and what you pay when it comes to closing properties. Now, if you're brand new, I highly encourage you always add a 5 to 10% hedge factor in, and that number, that percentage is based off of the sales price, the ARV, okay? That's going to tell you your max offer price, but remember, you start below this number. Always start below this number. Things to know before you close. This is important. The material cost breakdown, your material cost sheet. You got to start putting this together. You got to go down to Home Depot and start figuring out, hey, what does the toilet cost? What does the window cost? What does the door cost? What does the knob cost? What does the lock cost? What do blinds cost? What's flooring going to cost, per square foot? What is these things going to cost me, when I'm looking at this project? What's my holding cost per day going to be? This can add up. And so you need to figure that out. Like, what's it going to cost me per day to hold this job? Payments, taxes, insurance, utilities, interest rates, lost profits, those all add up into the per cost per day. Rehab timeline matrix. Know what you can do and in what time you can get it done in. Things to do before you close. Remember, this is important. Bids and inspections. Don't wait to close on the property to start this, okay? So many new rehabbers do this, and it's mind-blowing because now you just wasted a week that, you're burning money when you're on that job. Do all that ahead of time. Figure out all that stuff before you close on it. Get your bids together. Get your inspections together. Get all that out of the way so when you close, you can start the job. And the guidelines for dealing with a contractor. Remember, there are certain things that we need to understand when we're working with a contractor. And there's certain ways that we need to handle that relationship. So getting your funding together. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we have an entire funding training that you should watch. I'm just going to cover probably 5 or so in here. But you have traditional lenders. This is the cheapest money for available long term. You have private lenders. It's the best money to access to for growing. You have asset-based lenders and you have hard money lenders. And, these are going to be more expensive money, but when you're first starting out, if you watch that funding training, some of these guys don't even care about your credit. They don't care about docs. They just care about the deal. And so you definitely want to pay attention to those guys. And lines of credits, lending. This actually can be some of the cheapest money that you start with because you can get some of these LOCs for 0 interest for 12 months. And so it can help you with any shortage on your deals. It can help you with some, buying materials. I mean, there's a lot of things that can help you get that up and get your flipping business up and running. But let's spend some time here on picking a contractor and why picking a contractor is so important for you when you're starting out. And you need to be building your list of contractors like now. And that list is going to come from referrals. It's going to come from other investors. It's going to come from agents. It's going to come from property management companies. It's going to come from local RIA clubs. It's going to come from, like services like Angie's List. Things like that where you want to just start talking and getting to know contractors. Now, some things to look out for with unqualified contractors. No licenses. They don't have them or they can't produce it when you ask for a copy of it. They come around and do door-to-door knocking, meaning they're like, hey, I'm in the area. I wanted to see if you needed any work. No. Asking for all the money up front. Negative. And one of the big signs is when they start asking you to pull permits on the job. That is a telltale sign that they are not qualified to do the job. They might be a handyman, but there again, you still got to be careful when they're kind of shady, Now, I'm big on references, and so I give what's called a 6-question test to all the references. So if I am going to work with somebody, I'll ask them for references. And when they give me references, these are the questions I ask the people I call. The first question is did you use them? Like, hey, do you know John over here? I'm looking at having him do some work for me. He said he did some work for you. Did you use him? Yes, great. Were you happy with them? Yes or no? Yes. Great. Was the job finished on time? Yes or no? Yes. Great. They say no. Then I say, well, how long extra did it go? Okay, how much longer did it go? Was it in budget? Was it inside the budget that was set out in the beginning of the project? Yes or no? Yes, great. No? Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that? How much more did it go over? Was that, because you wanted to change things? Or was he just doing things and submitting change orders? I want to get clear on that. The other one is what is one thing you would like them to do different? And I'll tell you the answer that I get more than anything is cleaning up after themselves. That one I get more than anything because, I hate to say it, but most contractors are just not very clean. They leave a mess behind themselves. So, these are things that I want to know about this contractor because when I hear this, when I go meet back with them, I'm going to say, look, I called your references and, some things checked out, but one of the things that kept popping up is that you just weren't clean. You didn't clean your mess up. So I'm going to add that in our contract that, you're responsible to clean up after yourself. And are you okay with that? Okay, great. The other one is would you hire them again? Obviously, that's probably the most important question because if somebody really likes them, they will hire them again. But what I do know is sometimes we like people and we will hire them again, but there are things that we wish they would do different. And that's why I asked the other question. What's one thing that you would like them to do different? So that 6-question test will help you get a surefire clarity on that contractor's ability to perform. All right, getting bids from contractors. Always get 3 bids on every job. I'm telling you, you may not understand this now, but in the long run, you'll come back to this and get real clear on this. And look, I'm not a fan of taking the cheapest contractor. I've done it in the past when I first started out because I thought I was saving money. And the reality is I didn't save any money. It seemed good going in, but it wasn't going out. They were harder to deal with. They weren't on my job all the time. They were running multiple jobs, trying to make ends meet. It was just a lesson I learned the hard way. So I just don't take the cheapest anymore. I always take the person in the middle, and I utilize them. I'll even give the highest person a chance to come back down some. Get a copy of their license and insurance. It's important, okay? Ask for the bid to be separated. I'm going to ask them, hey, if it's a $20,000 job, how much of that was materials and how much of it's labor? Now, and the reason I do that, it helps me negotiate, but also negotiate the bid by asking questions. What does that mean? Well, you will be surprised at how you're able to get the price down, one, by splitting material and labor, because then you can start to see how much of it goes into material and how much of it goes into labor. But also you can start asking questions like, what can be done different? Like, hey, I noticed there's a lot of labor in here. Where's that labor coming from? Oh, well, we have to go out here and do X, Y, and Z. Well, is there another way to do that? Would it be cheaper if I rented, a piece of equipment that might cost me $200 for the day versus 2 days of labor fee, right? So you're able to start asking more questions. Another one is are there other materials to use? So I can look at the material sheet and I can say, look, I want to do this, but this is a little high. How can we use different materials to get the same outcome but are going to cost me less? So when you get these bids and you separate them, now you're in a position to start negotiating without just saying, oh, you want 20,000? Well, I'll give you 15. Well, they're not gonna like that. They're not gonna want to work with you. But if you have legitimate, meeting of the minds, now you can start asking important questions and identifying, how to cut back on labor cost or what other materials you can use to cut costs. You want to go through the contractor agreement with them. You absolutely want to have an independent contractor agreement, and you want to make sure that you're sitting down with them and you're going through it with them. So there's no, oh, well, I didn't know. Well, you signed it. Yeah, but I didn't read it. Well, I don't have to deal with that if I'm going through it with them. And go over the timeline for the project. That's so important that you sit down and you actually create a projection of project-based timelines. So week one, what are we going to do? X, Y, and Z. Great. And then what are we going to order in week one? We're going to order all these materials. Great. Week two, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. In week two, what do we need to order? We need to order this. Great. Week three, what are we going to do? Week four, what are we going to do? Week five, what are we going to do? So that you lay that out. So one, you know the expectation of where the project's going. Two, you know what materials have to be ordered at what point, so that when you're giving draws to the contractor for labor and material, you can come to the job and you can say, hey, look, I gave you money to order these materials that were on our timeline. I don't see them anywhere on the job. Where are we at? So you can hold everybody accountable. And you want to set up a payment draw schedule. And this is important so you're both clear. Hey, look, I'm going to give you X amount to start. I'm going to give you X amount halfway through the job. And I'm going to give you X amount when we're done. That's why that timeline is so important. You can't just say, I'm going to give you 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and not have a timeline, because then they can say, well, look, we're halfway through. But when I have a timeline schedule, I can go through that timeline schedule and say, okay, this is a 4-week job. We're on week 2. I can go through the house and I can say, okay, all of this was done and all this was done. Yeah, great. You get your second draw. Or I can go through and say, look, we agreed on this and this is where we're supposed to be. And you still haven't done these 5 things. So get those done and I'll give you your draw. Now that's great. But if they give you a pushback, let's just say the draw is $7,000 and I'm looking at week 2 and I'm seeing there's still 4 or 5 more items, but they got the majority of it done. Well, I'll give them half the draw. I'll say, okay, look, I'll give you 3,500 of the draw, but I'm not going to give you the other 3,500 until you finish these other items. And get all paperwork signed. Don't just give them, something like even the timeline, like initial it and have them initial it. The payment draw, you initial it, have them initial it. All right, rehabbing and cost of materials. So let's just talk about this. Now, obviously, cost will be different by market, but let's just kind of go through the things you need to be thinking about. Like demoing a property. Cost is based on square foot and time, right? How big is the property and determines how much time. Let's just use an example of one guy at $15 an hour. If it takes 3 days to demo, rip everything out, you're talking $350 to $400 just in the demo budget, okay? But that doesn't include, the dumpster. So you got a dumpster on the job. It's going to be about $350 to $500 depending on the size of the dumpster. A lot of these dumpsters, they don't even pull them until they're full. So they do what's called a bill for a pull. So if you fill it up, they come pick it up. They drop it back off, they bill you. Now, some bill you weekly, so you want to be careful with that. And that means even if it's full or not, they're billing you weekly for it sitting on the job. Make sure you are clear on what stays in the property. I've learned this the hard way because, I wasn't clear in the beginning, and I came back and I'm like, why is all this ripped out of here? Guys, remember, some of these guys doing demo work, they're not the brightest people in the world. They're just in there swinging hammers and blaring music. So do a walkthrough in the beginning. Every project should have a walkthrough in the beginning. I walked through it with my team. I walked through it with my project manager. I even walked through with spray paint, a can of spray paint, so I can make sure they're clear on what needs to come out. And take pictures of the property at this time of the walkthrough. Take pictures of what it looks like now so that when you come back, you take more pictures. When you come back, you take more pictures. You'll thank me in the end for this because you'll have an entire timeline of the project and the pictures associated with that project. Let's talk about framing walls, right? Framing walls. So, you can get pricing for all lumber and plywood at homedepot.com. It's super easy. I would encourage you to do that. But when you're framing, there again, if you've never framed before, I wouldn't encourage you to go out and do it. But that's why you need a contractor. But it's not as expensive as you may believe it to be, putting up a wall. Sometimes you get overcharged for it. So getting an idea of like, hey, a 10-foot wall, how much am I going to need? Well, I'm going to need a 10-foot plate. I'm going to need a 10-foot seal. And I'm going to need 8-foot studs along the way, 16 inches on center. So I can start to figure out how many pieces of lumber I need to frame that wall. And to frame a 10-foot wall shouldn't take more than an hour to do. But here's some tips. Any lumber touching the ground must be pressure treated. So you got to make sure that you price that accordingly. And keep in mind to add a 10 to 15% extra when ordering lumber, okay? Because of shrinkage, from cutting, you get a lot of leftovers. So instead of making multiple trips to Home Depot, just add the extra. Whatever you have left, just take it back. Never take down a load-bearing wall. Let's be very clear. Load-bearing walls are walls that run typically from end to end, and it's where the roof trusses sit on it. So if the roof trusses sit on top of a wall that makes a T or an X in an essence, then that roof truss is using that wall for weight. But if the wall runs, parallel with the truss, then obviously it's not a weight-bearing wall. It's just a wall that's been added. Here's another good one. A squeaky floor needs more screws. So if floors are going down and they're squeaking, you got to go back and add screws to them, okay? Make sure to install anything ahead of time before you start any framing work. So this helps you keep your contractors on the same line and in the same form of expectation. Make sure to check with your city code before starting things. It's important, especially when you're getting into framing, and obviously hire a professional to do this. I would encourage that. Electrical systems and updates. Now, you can find cost at Home Depot when you're dealing with electrical systems. Like what's a panel box going to cost you? What's the wiring cost per foot? What's an outlet cost? What's a plug cost? What's lighting cost? Things like that. But hire a licensed contractor for all electrical work. I mean, if you've got to rerun electricity or electrical lines in a property, to give you an idea, we gutted and pulled and added all new electrical and boxes and all that to a 3,400 square foot home, and it cost close to $8,000 to do that. And that was to do all the electrical. So just think about that. Buy a electrician tool that tests current to see if a line is hot or not. One of the best things I've ever done, especially walking doing a property and it's in the middle of rehab and I see wires exposed. I want to test it. If it's hot, why in the world is it exposed? I'm calling the electrician and saying, look, get over here and cut this off or cap this, do something with it. Label all wires from the panel box. I'm telling you, it's going to save so much in the long run. Homeowners are going to love this. So if you've got wires coming in that are like, say, the outlets for the foyer, that line needs to come into the fuse panel and it needs to say outlets for foyer. It helps you. It helps keep things organized. Another great tip for you is any outlets within 5 feet of a water source must be a GFCI outlet. They're built with breakers in them so they trip and you don't have exposure to water and electricity. Also, think out your lighting position before sheetrock goes up, okay? You don't want to put sheetrock up and then think about, I need to put a light in here. No, get all that out, get it laid out ahead of time. And make sure the power is shut off at the main panel before work starts. And make sure to check with the city code before starting on what this is like in your market. Plumbing systems and repair. There again, you can go to Home Depot and figure out what toilets cost. You can start to, get an idea of what things are going to cost you in this area. Always pressure test the new lines before paying the plumber at the end of the project. If you ran any type of plumbing lines, you just let them know, hey, look, I want to get a pressure test done on this before I pay you out so that you can meet them and get the test done. It's not always the best choice to go with the cheapest here when it comes to plumbing. The cheapest toilet, no. The cheapest, faucets, no. It's not always the best unless you're dealing with rental properties. Now, I'm going to tell you this. If you have to replace old lines with PEX. If it is in the budget, if you're replacing lines. PEX is a more flexible piping. Instead of the old copper and soldering, you can move it through walls easier. It doesn't bust in cold weather. It swells, but it doesn't, crack. And so hex is the way to go. Hire a professional to do your plumbing work. Remember, you need to access all plumbing. You have to have what's called an access panel. And these panels are typically on the opposite wall of where the plumbing is. So in a shower or a tub shower combo, the wall that has the faucet and the shower head on it, on the other side, you need to make sure that there's an accessible panel to that. Make sure to check with your city code before starting plumbing. These are all stuff to hire professionals on. HVAC system. Hire a licensed contractor to do this work. I would dare think of you going out and trying to put a new AC unit in your property. But, let's say that, like here in my market, for about a 2,000 square foot property, I can get a new AC unit put in for about $3,500. And that's them coming in replacing, but I hire a licensed contractor to do the work. Some points to keep in mind is keep your thermostat set no more or less than 10 to 15 degrees from the outside weather. If you don't want it to overheat, you don't want it to freeze up. I know some of you say, oh, well, it gets so cold outside. I get it, but don't leave it there. Set it, cool the house off, and then readjust it. And that was just advice from my HVAC contractor. Keep your filters changed out every few days during your rehab project. There is so much dust and debris that goes on during a rehab job that it is very important that you understand that that's getting sucked right up into your filtering system. So change out your filters regularly. Clean the external components from dirt and trash. The unit outside. Go out and spray it down. Keep your coils clean out there so that it works better. Just adding a new duct line and vent into a room is not going to fix the problem. So, for instance, I've seen people convert, garages, and I've seen people add extra rooms above a garage. And they think to themselves, oh, well, I want to use the square footage. So to get the square footage, they need to have, heating and cooling. So they go up in the attic and they cut a hole in the side of a ductwork and they stick a new tube in and they tape it off and they run that tube over to the new room and add a vent. Listen, the unit that was put in that house was not put in there for, the expected BTUs you're adding. And you need to keep that into consideration. You might add it and it has very little flow. And when you get the property inspected to sell it, they're going to point that out. So make sure to check with city code before you start any of this HVAC stuff. Sheetrock and repairs. Look, sheetrock, it's easy. It's a 4x8 sheet or a 4x12 sheet. Get pricing at Home Depot. I can tell you in most cases, you're going to be able to, take the square footage of the property times about $3, and that'll tell you what it would cost you to get the house re-sheetrocked. But I'm a big fan of using 4x12 because most charge you by the sheet to hang. So instead of a 4x8 sheet to hang, I have them use a 4x12 so I get more covered for the same price. Also, remember, all wet areas have to use sheetrock made for this, like behind showers and tubs. You have a special green board that needs to go up. And never leave sheetrock at a job site by an open window or exposed to the weather, because sheetrock is just that. It's dried up mud and paper to make the sheetrock. You can cover lots of issues on walls with spraying texture instead of replacing it with sheetrock, okay? So if you have really bad walls, you might want to come in and consider the cost of actually just spraying texture on the walls and doing what's called like an orange peel or a knockdown textured effect versus ripping all the sheetrock out and replacing it. And never put sheetrock up until the framing and electrical has been inspected. We should add plumbing in there. Has been inspected for purposes of the permit. Okay, when you're pulling permits on the job, You don't just go in and start hanging sheetrock. You got to do framing, electrical, and plumbing, and typically all your HVAC systems. Once all that's been done, you then call for an inspection. They come out, they do what's called a rough opening inspection. They say, okay, all the electrical looks good, all the plumbing looks good, the HVAC system looks good. All right, you're good. Then you can start closing up walls. Windows. Look, when you're dealing with windows, Home Depot has got some great windows. I'm always a fan of vinyl windows. They're the least expensive. You can get a window and have a window put in for $150 to $200. So, I know some of the wood windows are going to cost you more, closer to $300, but there's no need for it. So listen, here's some tips. Clean the windows and repair where needed before replacing. You may be surprised that a window just needs a good cleaning, needs a good paint job, maybe replace some of the the panes that might have been cracked or broken. I would always replace it and fix, or I would always paint and fix before replacing. There's no need for high-end windows. Vinyl is just fine. And remember, measure twice before ordering a window. That's the last thing you want to do is order a custom window and it doesn't fit. And to give you an example of that, a lot of the new construction, all the windows are the same. The vinyl windows are fit to go in there. You have what's called new construction windows, and you have remodel type windows that are just made to slide in from the exterior. But you got to measure it. You got to, and there's a couple of different ways to measure. There's a difference in rough opening measurement and an exact size measurement. So like when you're giving a measurement to let's say the window department at Home Depot or your pro desk specialist, you want to make sure you tell them, hey, look, it's 24 by 36 inches, and that is the exact measurement, okay? Not a rough opening, because rough openings allow for, a quarter to a half an inch overage. So you just got to make sure that you're giving them the exact measurement. Always make sure the window is sealed correctly before putting the new window in. You need to have what's called vapor sealant put in around the sides and the tops and the bottoms before you slide the window in. And use insulation spray foam around the windows. It's something I've always done to just try, if there's any gaps, I want to spray it in there and get those air pockets out of there so I don't have any exposure of weather coming into the property. Bats. Oh, we love bats, right? Bats. I can tell you pretty much that you're going to be able to, you can pretty much say that you can remodel a bathroom for about $30 a square foot. And that's something that I'm pretty confident about from the years I've been doing this. And if you're looking at a bathroom and then you say to yourself, well, Zach, how do I know the square footage to that bathroom? Well, you take the length times the width, and then you figure out what your square foot number is. And let's just say that square foot number comes out to, I don't know, let's say you have a bathroom, it's a 10 by, well, let's use easy math. It's 10 by 10, right? It's a 10 by 10 bathroom. Then I know over my experience that it's going to cost me about $3,000 to remodel that bathroom. And that's to, go in and replace, paint it, the floors, the plumbing, the toilets, the sinks, the cabinets, all that. It's about $30 a square foot when you look at bathrooms, okay? But here's some tips. Don't overdo it. Remember, you aren't going to live in it, okay? You're not going to live there. That's in key. That's key. Use lighter colors in a bathroom to make it look bigger. Don't be doing like reds and blues, like lights, like yellows, like grays, like tans. And use pedestal sinks in small bathrooms. I know people say, oh, well, but they need space to put stuff. I get it, but most people will come in and make it their own. They'll add shelves. They'll do all kinds of things. But you want to sell it, and so you got to make it look open. Think about the use of the space carefully and how can you maximize it. And never finish the bathroom before the plumbing inspection is done, okay? There again, never close it up. Skylights are great when you remove a window in a bathroom. So if you have a bathroom that doesn't have a window, that you put a skylight in. I mean, they're easy. It gives tremendous amount of light. They're important. Think about the venting of the room and make sure it's to code, especially if you don't have a window. You got to have ventilation that takes not into the attic, but it takes it out of the house. So you got to run ductwork into the vent that runs out to the side of the house and has a vent trap on the outside so that rodents can't get in it. So, and use a professional, guys, there again, hire a contractor. So let's talk about kitchens. So kitchens are, obviously what sells properties. And, in a lot of cases, this is where most of the money is spent, is inside of a kitchen. But there again, it shouldn't eat your entire budget up. But from my experience, a kitchen is going to cost you anywhere from $40 to $50 a square foot. So what does that mean? Let's say I've got a 15 by 20 kitchen. That's 300 square feet times $45. I'm going to spend roughly $13,000 on remodeling that entire kitchen if I wanted to just tear it down and rebuild it back up. Now, I don't want to scare you there, okay? That's a 15 by 20 kitchen, right? That's a big kitchen. But it's going to be around $40 to $50. Let's say 40 on the low end. Now, that's a gut and rebuild. If you're just going in and you're just painting cabinets and countertops, some appliance, some tile, you could get that number all the way down to about $20, if not even $15. So if I did a 15 by 20 and I said, look, I'm only going to paint cabinets, change hardware, change fixtures, appliances, tile, countertops, and so forth, I could then turn around and say, well, look, I could be in and out of that kitchen for about $6,000. And that's at $20, okay? So keep that in mind. All right. Oh, did I finish that? This is the center point. We talked about that. Always use tile in wet areas. This goes back to flooring. We haven't gotten into flooring yet, but tile should be in kitchen baths. It should be in, I put it in foyers, the little landing spot coming into the door, laundry rooms, so forth. You don't have to rip out cabinets every time. So stop and think about it. Are the cabinets, the boxes good? The doors may not look good, but are the boxes good? Paint cabinets before replacing them and the hardware. Use countertops that are similar to the houses that have sold. I know a lot of people want to come in and all they want to do is put granite in, but here's the reality. Sometimes you don't need granite, okay? It's not called for. And try to put as much light in this room as possible, whether that's can lighting, a skylight, or even lighting under the cabinets. Just create light in this room. And always put new matching appliances. Don't try to save money here and get mixed match appliances. It's not worth it. Painting. Okay, so painting, I don't know why anybody would want to paint themselves. It makes no sense. Hire a painter to come in and paint. You'd be surprised. Most painters will charge $2 to $3 a square foot of the property to paint it. So it's not that expensive, even though, it's not that expensive per square foot, but if you got a big house, it can get expensive. If you got a 3,000 square foot house, you could pay, anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000 to paint that house. So here's some tips. Follow the latest paint colors in new houses. Like, get out and look, see what's going on. Check the neighborhood. Don't accept a bad paint job. This could cost you thousands of dollars. So it's important that you're following behind your painters and seeing what kind of job they're doing. One of the worst is a sloppy painter that is, bleeding wall paint on the ceiling or getting paint on the trim, or when they're rolling. A lot of painters will come in and they'll spray walls and then they'll come behind it with a roller. If that roller is not a good roller, if it's not a roller that's, if it's a cheap roller, it's going to leave threads on the walls when they're rolling behind it. If it's dirty, it's going to pick up dirt and put it on the walls. If they're using old paint, let's just say this. Let's say that they've had paint that's been sitting and now they're going to try to reuse it, they should strain that paint because that paint will get buildup in it and it'll get little, little hard pieces of paint that have dried up down in it. And when they go to roll, all that paint will show up on the wall and it'll look horrible. But the thing is they're going fast, so they don't see it. And if they don't see it, they're the wrong painter. So just know that. Make sure they do good prep work so you don't have to clean up behind them. That's like taping stuff off, putting drop cloths down, taping off baseboards, taping off doors, taping off windows. I mean, it's surprising to me why more of them don't do this, because it's more work in the long run for them to try to come back and fix all this. Always paint before the flooring goes in. That's a must. Remember that. And never paint the walls and the trim the same color. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that in houses. And don't paint the outside when the cold weather's coming. I think the rule of thumb is like 45 degrees. If the weather's 45 degrees, paint just won't stick. So there's no need to even paint, okay? Don't paint or use 3 color schemes on the outside. Like paint the house one color, paint the trim another color, and paint the door and shutters one color. I even know people who do 4 colors. They paint the house one color, the trim one color, the shutters one color, and the doors one color. Most of the time it's because they like using what's red doors. They want to paint everything a red door color, like a crimson red color. So, but there again, hire a professional to do this job. The money's worth it. Flooring. Here we go into flooring. There's so many different types of flooring. You have carpet, tile, you have laminate, you have engineered wood, you have hardwoods. The pricing structures are all over. Like, you can get some inexpensive tile for less than $1. You can get better grade tile for over $1. You can get, carpet anywhere from $1.50 to $4. You can get laminate flooring for anywhere from, $1 to $2 to $2.50 a square. You can get engineered flooring anywhere from $3 to $6. You can get hardwood, from $3 to $9. I mean, they range, but the flooring type you put in has everything to do with the price point you're going to use. Okay, so if my medium home value in my area is $150, $150,000, then any properties I'm using at $150,000, I'm probably putting either laminate or engineered flooring in there. Mostly laminate. If I'm going over that, then yeah, I'm going to look more into the higher end engineered or hardwood floors. I carpet the bedrooms. I've always done that. And so unless I'm buying an old house that already has hardwoods in it. So never try to match floors with different types. So if you've got an engineered floor in the living room, I'll give you a prime example. I bought a house. They had a light haystack colored flooring in the living room. They had a dark walnut color flooring in the foyer and in the hallway. And they had another type in the dining room. I mean, it was horrible. Like, what were they thinking, right? So use the same colors. And remember, tiling all wet rooms like kitchens, bath, and laundry. Put your hardwood floor in the house. So if you're going to use hardwood floors or engineered flooring or anything like that, you want it to sit in the house for at least 24 hours before laying it down. It needs to go through a curing process, and it has to do what's called, I just went blank on it, but it's anyways. It has to cultivate to the house's temperature, moisture, and if you let it sit for 24 hours, it will, it will be better to lay, because then it won't shrink in. It won't create shrink on you or expansions. It will have already done that and will have already set in its place. Carpet comes in different density. So think about the price point of the home. There's really cheap carpet out there that we use in rentals. And then there's like mid-grade and high-grade for flipping. But a lot of it has to do with the pad. The pad is what's important. Never, ever, ever leave out the pad. Let me just put that in there. But the better the pad, actually, the better the carpet will feel. If you put a little cheap, thin pad in there, the carpet's going to feel like that. But if you put a good, decent, dense pad in there, then the carpet's going to have that squishy feel to it. And that's what people are really looking at. They're not like getting down on the floor and digging inside of the carpet to see what the thread count is, but they're walking on it. So think of pad more than anything. Under the old carpet could be great floors. So sand them and stain them. I mean, it's a glory find, right? It's like a gold nugget to hit a house like that. If you're putting down a floating floor, make sure to screw down any squeaky areas, okay? Especially on a floating floor is like a snap floor. It's like a engineered or laminate flooring where, they just kind of snap together and lay down. They typically lay down on a quarter an eighth or a quarter of an inch little pad, but not glued down. And if you have a squeaky floor, it's just going to be even worse. So walk through the property before flooring goes down. Anywhere you find squeakiness, just have someone, a handyman, or if you want to, get you a screw gun and screw that floor down, okay? Never lay new on top of old. Never lay new flooring on top of old flooring. It makes no sense for you to go into a house and lay down new laminate flooring on top of old laminate flooring. Tear it out and then lay down the new floor. Roof. What is roof, right? Roof is one of those things that we always think, that roof looks ugly, I should tear it off. That's not true, though. That's not true. Just because a roof looks bad does not mean it's lived its lifespan. I mean, most roofs last, 15 to 30 years. I mean, that's what they're certified to do. Just because they're discolored does not mean that they're bad roofs. I mean, depending on the size of the house and depending on what you have to do to the roof, I mean, you could put a roof on for $2,500 to $6,000 on a job. But the key is do you need the roof, right? That's why you get a home inspection on the property. And one of the things I always say is, look, inspect the roof. What's the life left on the roof? Because you'd be surprised. Just a good cleaning could, change the whole outlook of the roof. So hire the right roofing company that has references. Okay, that's important, very important. You don't have to rip off the old roof. This is something that a lot of people think is that, it needs a new roof, so I got to rip off the old roof. No, not every time you don't. You have to rip off the old roof when you have, under the plywood under the roof is damaged and you got to repair that. But in most all markets allow you to lay a layer on top of a layer, okay? Which means if you have a roof that is bad, it's cupping, and but it hasn't really leaked, it just looks bad, you, instead of paying the cost to rip off the old roof, you can just come back and do what's called a layover on top of the old one, okay? And I know, like in our market, we can go, up to, I think maybe even 3 layers. But I know for sure we can do 2 layers. So if I'm looking at a roof and there's no leaking, but the shingles are cupping and splitting and, folding back, you can pretty much guarantee I am not paying the cost to rip it off. I'm just laying on top of it, okay? But also try pressure washing the roof before replacing it. It might just have a lot of stains and maybe trees in the area have drip sap on it, or it might have had some buildup in a valley where leaves had gotten in there and it's putting a dingy black look out. Pressure washing will help. And make sure the roofer, I should say, is prepping the area before they start the tear off. So when you have a roofing company coming in to tear off, you need to make sure that they're going around the edge of the house and they're prepping for that tear off, because if not, what's going to end up in your gardens and around the edge of your house is all this particles of roof material and nails. So you got to make sure you're on the same page with that. Also, cut all branches away from the roof before you start work. So if you've got trees around the roof, get rid of them. If you have an area that gets moss or mildew on the roof, then one of the easy fix to this is getting what's called a zinc strip and tacking a zinc strip up on the roof. So when the rain comes, the rain will wash over that zinc and it will wash it down the roof, and that will kill moss and mildew that's on the house that's starting to build up over time. So, all right, let's talk about decks and porches. I'm a super fan of decks and porches, especially when there's a backyard that, you know, needs something to it. Adding a porch will absolutely change the entire look of that backyard. Even if the porch is only 2 feet off the ground, it will give them what's like a common hangout area. They can now see the use of that backyard. But clean them first. If it already has a porch back there and you're thinking you got to rebuild it, no, clean them, pressure wash them, see what it looks like, clean it up real good. If it still, you know, looks a little banged up or discolored, you can stain an old deck with a dark stain to save money, like a chocolate stain. It covers up all discolorations and it looks like a new deck. Another secret you can do is when you have a deck and the deck boards, what you walk on, you know, have been there a long time and they've gotten a lot of sun exposure, they'll start to split and check and cup. You can always take them up and flip them over. You flip over the new deck boards and you're going to get a brand new look because the board on the bottom has not been exposed to the sun or the weather as much as the top. And so I would still encourage you to stain it after that. Code says, though, to keep in mind anything over 24 inches needs a handrail. And also keep in mind on a handrail, balusters can't be more, depending on your market, 4.5 inches apart. Safe to just say 4 inches apart, okay? You just need to check your code in your area. But all decks should have a low slope grade away from the house. I know that sounds odd, but I'm not talking a 2-inch slope grade. I'm talking a 1/2 inch slope grade. I mean, just if it's a deck up against the house, it needs to grade away from the house. So when it rains, it's not coming at the house, but instead away from the house, okay? Hire a professional to install a new deck, okay? My point of advice is this on decks, though. If it doesn't have one and you're thinking about adding one, always add a deck anytime there is a view that is hard to see. Even if that deck needs a set of stairs, you know, going up to it from the outside, but it gives them a landing place that they can get up and actually see the view that they're getting when they buy the house. So, landscaping, one of the most important things you can get because it's all about curb appeal, right? So curb appeal is very important. You know, landscaping can range you anywhere from $500 to $10,000 depending on the job, but in most cases we spend about $1,500 on landscaping. And it's important to know that you should start landscaping sooner than later, okay? Like, it's important. Don't wait till the end to do the landscaping. Start the landscaping early, because especially if you've got a seed and fertilized grass to get it growing, you know, don't wait till the end to do that. Start that in week 1. Like, get that grass seeded, get it fertilized, get the bushes out of the way, get the new bushes in. If you're going to plant flowers, that might be something I'd hold off until like the last week of the job, just so they don't get stepped on, they don't get crushed. You know, if you don't have a good green thumb, you don't want them to die over the next 4 weeks. But you definitely want to get the areas landscaped, get the trees trimmed back, the mulch. Don't wait till the last minute to do this. Get it done in the beginning. Make sure you can see the house. So cut any branches and trees back so you can see the house. Cut away trees if needed. It's one of my pet peeves is driving up on a house and can't see it. Don't go overboard with bushes and flowers, okay? Keep it simple. This isn't HGTV, especially these little in and out deals. Pressure wash the driveway, but also pressure wash the curb in front of the house. Yeah, I know it belongs to the city, but pressure wash it. Keep it looking nice, okay? Use liquid seed and fertilizer over using sod if you have bad spots, okay? So like if you buy a house and you see like a certain side of it, you know, isn't getting a lot of grass, well, there's no need to dig it all up and put new sod down. In week 1, just come out there and loosen up the dirt, maybe even rent a tiller or get your handyman to rent a tiller and run it over the area that's not getting a lot of grass. And then come through and put a bunch of seed and liquid fertilizer down and watch it grow over the next 2 weeks. That way you're getting it done early. And keep the grass mowed. I can't express this enough. Hire someone to do this. Hire someone to do this, okay? Even once it's been listed. All right, expert tips. Let's talk about, an easy way to factor cost, okay? Most jobs will range in cost, but, on a smaller rehab around that $20,000 mark, you can expect to pay $12 to $15 per square foot to go in and remodel that property. Now remember, this is cosmetic work. It's $20,000 remodel, $20,000 remodel, you're going to be around $12 to $15 per square foot. Now a medium-sized remodel, let's say you're in between $20,000 and $40,000, you might be getting into extra stuff. You might have some electrical stuff to deal with, some plumbing stuff to deal with. You might have a roof. You're going to be pushing $15 to $17 per square foot on a job like that. Now, larger rehabs, when you start going from $40,000 to $80,000, you could be in the $18 to $25 per square foot range. Now, if you're watching this and you're out in California, you need to add $10 to everything. Okay? Or if you're in the Northeast, you need to add $10 to $15 to everything. So if I'm $15 a square foot here in the South regions or the Midwest, you're probably going to be closer to $25, maybe even $30 a square foot. So, but larger rehabs, we're anywhere from $18 to $25. Now, when we are going in and we're doing a complete gut jobs and rebuilds, like $100,000 or more type of work, you can pretty much guarantee we're going to be $30 to $60 per square foot. I mean, we just did one that was $57 a square foot, but it needed everything. I had to basically take the property down to the studs, and I had to redo the electrical, the plumbing, redo every bathroom, every kitchen, redo the flooring, fix all new sheetrock had to go back in. I had to do the roof, I had to do foundation work. I mean, you name it, we were doing it. So, it can get all the way up to about the price point to just build a house, right? So, doing cosmetic rehabs will put you around that $15 per square foot though, and that's where you want to be, okay? Let's talk about selling the property. I always try to be under the ARV. So if I'm looking at an ARV and it's telling me $150,000, then I'm going to run my resale about $145, and I'm going to run my numbers off of $145 so that I can go in there and I can stay around that number. So, try to stay about 5%. So, if it's 150, 5% 7,000. So, 140 to 145. Or 5 to 10,000 under the ARV, if it'll make a difference. So, know what the average person can afford. Does your house fit that demographic? That's important, okay? And that's why we go back to the very beginning and we look at what's called the affordability. What can people afford in this area? That's where I want to be on my price point. Make sure your property is close to shopping, interstate, work, and activities. Yeah, I know a lot of people want country living, but I guarantee you more people want to buy houses that they can get to shopping and interstate and work and activities than they do in the country. Understand rent versus own ratio. Is it cheaper to rent in the area or buy in that area that you're putting properties on the market for? Okay. Pull your data on solds per month. This is important. Solds per zip code per month. It'll start to help you identify the hot time to sell. You'll be able to see, lay out each month and how many houses are selling each month, and you'll start to see a little bell curve get created. And stage your house, guys. I mean, it's important. It gives people a visual aspect. Bathrooms, kitchens, welcome area, bedrooms, small beds, rugs in the big rooms. Remove clutter, remove big furniture. Just take in consideration. Maybe you have existing furniture. Just move it around a little bit. Like in the top example, the bottom example is just decluttering. Get that stuff out of there. Put smaller chairs in there so they can see the utilization of the space. Also, putting it on the MLS. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You can do what's called a flat fee broker. You can pay $400 to $600 to just list it for you. They're not going to do anything else. They're just going to list it. They're not going to do the paperwork. They're not going to show it. They're not going to do anything. But it gives you the ability to offer a higher commission to a buyer's agent, where if your agent listed it, there's a 6% commission. Well, the buyer's agent is going to get 3%. Well, if I really want to sell my house quickly, I can do a flat fee broker and I can offer 5% to the buyer's agent, which gets them more excited because I don't have to pay a seller's agent because I don't have one. I went to a flat fee broker. Offer some closing fees to the buyer as well because you're going to be saving money. Now, here's the beauty of this. The money that you're saving can be then spent back to the buyer's agent and the closing fees to just sell it quicker, okay? Now, also agent listings. Give a bonus for selling fast to your agent, like $1,000 if they sell it in 30 days, $750 if they sell it in 60 days, $500 if they sell it in 90 days. So there's incentive for them to make a move on this. Have them run a newspaper ad if it's in the budget, and have them put it all over the web, like realtor.com. You want the top page on this, and they can do what's called a showcase property. And make sure they do an open house. I know a lot of agents say that it's a lost cause, but every agent that I've had that sold my properties quickly were agents that were doing open houses. All right. Now let's talk about the power of yourself. Okay, the power of the web. These are things you can do. You can post your property on all sites like Craigslist, Backpage, Oodle, Kijiji, Post-its, VFlyer, any local selling sites that are out there that are available. You want to put it on these pages, and I think it's important. So, all right, guys. Well, look, I took you through the whole process. Big fat checks with flipping houses, from understanding how to find the right areas, to evaluating properties, to the funding sources, to what's the demo going to cost and what should I look out for, to the rehab, to all the different aspects of it, the things you got to look out for, and the inspection, and why you should have 2 inspections, and why you should have an appraisal done, and selling the property. All of these things are important for you when it comes to getting out there and flipping houses. But the key that I want you to understand is just building your relationship with a contractor, right? That's why we spent so much time talking about that. So hire a contractor, get them on your team, and get your flipping business up and running. Zack Childress here. And remember, if you want more training on flipping houses, there is a full-blown course that we have on flipping houses, and from everything from documents, paperwork, all that stuff, including an actual 3-day in the field with me where we learn the flipping business, and on top of that, we go out and look at houses together, and we come back, and that's a full 3-day training just on flipping houses. So if that's something that you're interested in to learn more about this, highly lucrative strategy, then you should call my office at 707-247-4248 and ask to speak to a student advisor about our In the Field with Zack, the bus tour. Okay. Anyways, Zack Childress here. I'll see you on another training.